Okay, today we're going to deal with with Megillat Esther, which is an interesting problem about teaching the Megillah. Because on one hand, everybody is familiar with it, but oftentimes they're locked into very simple or even childlike notions about the Megillah, which then blocks them from understanding it in an adult way. Okay, so let's do a little trial. We're gonna do a little test here. Describe to me your mental picture of Achashverosh, King Achashverosh. Dead.
The womanizer.
The womanizer. That's already. That's not
arrogant.
Arrogant. Fat. Achashverosh is always fat. Generally jolly.
Yeah, jolly.
Always red. Got some red in the face because he's always drinking, right? Mm-hmm. People view him as like this jolly, sort of a bumbling idiot of a guy. Now, is that prove to me from the very first sentence of the Megillah that cannot be true? Let's read the first sentence. All right, Shir, read us the first sentence of the Megillah.
And it came to pass in the days of Achashverosh, the same Achish. No, I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. Sorry.
Achashverosh.
Achashverosh, who ruled from Hodu to Cush, 127 provinces.
Okay.
He's ruling quite a few places.
All right. So what's the deal with that? So if he's ruling these kind of places, what does that tell you about him?
Must be a leader of some kind.
Yeah, he's running the Persian Empire. Okay, that in 2,500 years ago, it's not a simple thing. He may not have been the best king of all time, but he's still a king, and he's running a pretty. He's not running a city. He's not even running a province. He's running an entire empire. So already he's a smart guy. You know what I'm saying? That's number one. What is your childlike vision of Haman? What does Haman look like?
I guess evil.
Okay, so that right there, he looks. So what does it make? How do you know he's evil? How does that evil person look?
I don't know.
But what's your vision of Haman? Elise, what was your vision of Haman?
My vision is that he's like sort of thin and he has a mustache.
Always a mustache. Haman, for some reason, always has. Everybody thinks that Haman has a mustache. Slanty eyes. A very thin mustache, right? Always very thin. And like an evil mustache. Oh, and he's always wearing a hat, right?
Shaped like a hamantash.
Shaped like a hamantash, obviously. Okay. So obviously, what's the problem with that image?
It's childlike.
Okay, but what's the error of that?
There's no basis.
What does an evil person look like?
Like me and you.
Right. And just the opposite. If he became the second in command, that means what was the nature of his social skills?
Very good.
Excellent. How about the rest of his skill set? How, as far as management and administration and being organized, what was his skills like?
He had to be like really on top of his game.
Yeah, he's de facto running the entire empire. So you're talking about you're looking to a person who could be like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You know what I mean? Very competent person. Probably if you had lunch with Haman, you might even like him. I'm being completely serious. He didn't become number two by becoming generally disliked by people. So the guy's like a little short midget of a guy with a slanty mustache and going, yee. He's not going to have de facto too many friends. All right? So we need to, and then of course, what's Esther all about in people's mind? When you think about Esther, what do people think about?
Sexy?
No, I don't think, not quite sexy. It's a little too much.
They're just like pretty,
sweet,
sweet.
She kind of like sort of Barbie-esque,
Mhm.
but not in the sexy Barbie-esque thing. You know,
But didn't he shoot? Wasn't she chosen over lots of other women?
True. True. But I'm just saying, but the childlike notion is that this is this very nice, simple,
Naive.
naive, obviously attractive woman. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, how is she in the entire Megillah?
Really aware of what's going on.
How about rude?
Well,
In a good way.
in a good way.
Strategic.
Right.
Right.
Sure implies
Not good.
evil.
Right. Right. Strategic. Thoughtful. You know what I'm saying? So all these ideas that we have coming to the Megillah, which are forged in childhood, ultimately we need to unlearn them. That's true knowledge and everything about becoming an adult. All right. So that's the first thing. Okay, is that clear? So, and then we have Mordechai. What's Mordechai? What are people's ideas about Mordechai?
A cool man.
Definitely got a beard.
Long gray beard.
Long gray beard. He's like Rabbi. He's Rabbi Mordechai, right? But like a old rabbi, what is your personal association with that?
Wise, principled.
True, principled and wise, but also a little bit disconnected. Not really, when you think of an old rabbi, you don't think of a person who's with it, who's really, you might have the element of being naive. You know what I'm saying? A person who's not really understanding the goings on of the people. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, if he's involved together with Esther to undo the entire, first of all, what's his job? What's Mordecai's job? He's Bashar HaMelech. What does that mean to be Bashar HaMelech in the king's gate? What does that mean practically? He's just hanging around the gate? He's a loiterer? That's his job? What do? I loiter around Achashverosh's gate? No, he was a civil servant. He worked for the administration. Okay, so obviously he's working, and then ultimately at the end, when Haman gets killed, what happens to Mordechai? He becomes the number two. He becomes the viceroy. Now, is Achashverosh going to give control of his empire to somebody who is woefully inadequate? You're going to take somebody from the guy who's working in the mail room in IBM and say, Charles, you've had a great 6 weeks here in the mail room, but we're going to make you the CEO. Is that going to happen? No. So Achashverosh is not an idiot. He's promoting Mordechai because the guy is obviously very gifted. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to share with you, we're just going to dispel certain beliefs we have about these people. Which when you think about them for a moment as an adult, you know that they're not true. Okay, so we want to get into the guts of the Megillah. So let's start by reading the first story, the first chapter 1. Okay, who would like to read? Sure, you want to take it?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Gilad, make it happen.
Okay. Second line.
Yeah, number 2.
In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne, which was in Shushan the capital, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all his ministers and servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and all the ministers of the provinces in his service. For many days, 180 days, he displayed the wealth of his glorious kingdom and the distinction of his glorious majesty.
Okay, question. So he has a party. Party number 1. How long? 180 days long. Okay, that seems reasonable. Okay. First, there's a number of questions. So why is he doing a 180-day party, A? And why do we, as the readers of this entire story, need to know about it? All right? And then but you know what's better than one party? 2 parties. Let's go to number 2. Verse 5.
Okay. And when these days came to an end, the king made a 7-day feast in the courtyard of the king's palace garden for all the people in Shushan the capital, noble and commoner alike. There were hangings of white, green, and blue, held by cords of linen and purple wool, to silver rods and marble pillars. There were divans of gold and silver on a floor of alabaster and marble, arranged in a pattern of rows and circles. Drinks were served in golden vessels of assorted design, and the royal wine was in abundance as befitting the king. The drinking etiquette was to be non-pressuring, for so had the king ordered all the servants of his household to comply with each man's wish.
Okay, good. So, question to you. So we have the second, so what's it in between the first party and the second party?
The second party was shorter,
7 days.
but we don't know like the details of the first party, but we get more details about the second party.
We do. Who's on the invite list on the first party?
The royal people, the nobles, the ministers, the provinces. So that's like the heads, as opposed to the next one's for the commoners.
Well, the one was for who, but it was limited to what
Shushan.
people? The people of his capital city. So I asked you a simple question: What was the goal of his? What was the goal of his parties? Or if you say, "Hey, he's a wealthy king. He likes to party,"
He's
and that's just what he likes to do.
well, it says he's displaying the wealth of his glorious kingdom and the distinction. So it's like he's showing off his own wealth and why he's so glorious.
So, correct, but is that the goal, or is there perhaps an agenda behind that?
Maybe he wants to unite the army of Persia and Media.
All right, Medea. Why?
I don't know.
Well, keep it. If he wines and dines people, then they won't want to attack. They won't want to, cause any problems because he is spoiling them and treating them nicely.
Exactly. So this is not to the unsophisticated observer. It's like there's a king who's wealthy, who's having a very ornate party. But in reality, there's nothing free in this life. And there's a very clear objective to this party, which is to maintain control of the empire. Why is it a 180-day long party? Are they drinking for 180 days solidly? What's a probably realistic explanation of that?
Less time to attack or do anything.
Okay, it's more like it's more of the modern equivalent would be more of a convention. They're probably discussing stuff. We're gonna build a road over here and a bridge over here, and we're gonna deal with the problems of the rebels in this area, and then they're gonna have break for hanging out and eating and drinking and carousing, whatever that may be. And also, not everybody can probably show up because everybody can't come in. So he keeps sort of the party officially open for 180 days. I don't think he's drinking for 180 days. That's physically not possible. And anyways, for his objective, he's trying to show people very simply, you hang with me, things are going to be good. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to maintain the fancy word, his hegemony, his lock of control over them. Okay? So, but then there's a second party, a short party, 7 days. And what's really who's the focus of that party? What's the agenda of that party?
To keep his capital happy, to keep the people happy, to keep them also in control.
Right, because the people in Shushan, he's got to keep them happy because they are the people of his capital city. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's an insurrection in his town, he's done. And what kind of is the party? What's the focus of the second party versus the first party? They're vastly different.
The second party seems like it's really focused on, you can come as you are. There's no pressure, but we're gonna like give you food and drink and make sure everybody's, no matter what you eat during the rest of the year or drink, like you'll have plenty. I mean, it's just sort of seems like it's just spoiling his people.
Yeah, but what's focused in what way? What if there's a greater emphasis on something
The
about
decorations, the
it's
physical,
gorgeous, it's beautiful,
the drinks, how everything was served. He's treating them like royalty.
Right. So verse 7 and 8 is talking about drinking. Is there any mention in drinking about the first one? No. Why is that? Now, well, there was no drinking. Everybody's abstemious during the first 108-day party.
Well, the first one maybe was more about statesmanship and discussing spoils and big projects, and maybe the second one is purely like hedonistic.
Right. It's like for the regular people, you want to have a block party with a grill and all you can drink beer. I'm talking about the American equivalent. Versus an Upper East Side dinner party. It's more about the the fanciness of it all. Of course you're going to drink some champagne or some very exquisite Merlot, but you're not going to be hammering shots. You know what I'm saying? Number 2 is hammering shots.
One is like the World Economic Forum at Davos.
Exactly. Perfect.
Another one is like the St. Patrick's Parade or something.
Exactly. Okay. Now, see, by the way, I like what you did because it's very important to take the document, which is called the Megillah, and understand it in contemporary eyes. What you've done is you've now shifted this from being a sort of a Disney-esque fable kind of thing, like there's this new movie Frozen, which if you have a 7-year-old daughter, you will have to go see. Right. Just want to say, let it go, let it go. Anyways, so in that kind of thing, there's sort of mythological world there. So when you listen to the Megillah, you might, if you don't think about it in a contemporary manner, it might get lost into a mythological picture of this roly-poly king, of like the kings that are in like Beauty and the Beast, those kind of people who are not real and are doing crazy things, and living a crazy existence. Here makes it contemporary, political, real. That's the Megillah you want to look at, which then gets to our next question. Why do we care? Because what's the goal of the entire first chapter? Because what happens next, of course, let's just look up here. Go ahead, number 9.
Okay. Me?
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Why the heck not?
Queen Vashti, too, made a feast for the women in the royal palace of King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he ordered Mehuman, Bizeta, Chavona, Bigda, Avagta, Zetar, and Sharkas, the 7 chamberlains who attended King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing the royal crown, to show her beauty to the nations and ministers, for she was indeed beautiful. But Queen Vashti refused to appear by the king's order, brought by the chamberlains, and the king grew furious, and his wrath seethed within him.
Okay, so what did King Vashti? King actually made a little mistake here. What was his first mistake? By day 7 of his party,
He's drunk.
Yeah, he's drunk, and is that a good time to making some decisions? And what does he ask for? Yeah, to show her off. Because she's indeed beautiful. So Vashti was a beautiful woman. But what does it say? But Queen Vashti refused. Why'd she refuse? Based upon the plain text. Keeping the midrashim, which are numerous, aside. Why'd she refuse?
Well, she didn't want to be shown off as a piece of meat.
Right. She's holding forth. She's building her own empire. She's having all women's. She's a liberated woman. She has her own party at the other part of the palace, and she doesn't want to be grabbed in front of holding court from all the women of Shushan, and and have to do the beauty pageant walk in front of these drunk guys. You know what I mean? It's ultimately humiliating. She views herself as being she's a queen. It says, who refused? Did Vashti refuse? No, Queen Vashti refused. You know what I'm saying? In other words, her queenness, her sense of personal aristocratic, her sense of aristocracy, dignity, significance, did not tolerate being asked to walk the catwalk there in front of the drunk dudes. You know what I'm saying? So what was happening here?
Butting heads.
So you have the essence of all fighting in marriage right here. The essence of all fights in all marriage is what? Power struggle. Person wants A, the spouse wants B, and then there's instead of discussing the issue, there is a using either power, strength or manipulation or any kind of methodology to attain the goal. You know what I'm saying? But really, it's really the thing is who can become more dominant in the relationship. Male and female. So she basically now put him in a bad spot. Why is he now in a bad position?
Because she refused in front of people.
Right. So now,
It looks like he doesn't.
here, what's the irony of ironies? He's trying. This is the last day of his entire 180-day plus 7-day goal of doing what? Of being what?
In control.
In control of the empire. And what is reality? What did his wife show him?
He didn't have control of her.
He didn't have control of his own wife, his own house. You know what I'm saying? It's the ultimate irony. So now he's really stuck because he's now been shown absolutely weak. You know what I'm saying? This is a major problem. All right, as you guys know, what happens? So skip a little bit. Actually, it's a good thing he asked his guys, his advisors, and then the Memuchan says what? Pick it up over here.
It is not against the king alone that Queen Vashti has sinned, but against all the ministers and all the nations in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For a word of the queen's deed will reach all the women, and it will belittle their husbands in their eyes. For they will say, King Ahasuerus commanded that Queen Vashti be brought before him, yet she did not come. This very day.
So Memuchan's argument is what he's trying to do is universalize the fact that maintaining her presence here is really what?
Showing all women.
Right, undermining, you're going to cause a feminist revolution of epic proportion, and no women than any of the guys. And what? That cannot happen. She needs to be what? Stopped. Right? So, all right. So that let the what's the royal thing? That Queen Vashti may never again appear before King Ahasuerus, and let the king confer her royal title to another woman. Okay, and he agreed. Okay, please the king, minister, they liked it, and that was it. So that's the end of Vashti. Does it mean that she was killed or she was banished? It doesn't tell you from the verses. Chazal have maintained that she was actually killed. Whatever, doesn't make a difference. But what's the purpose of chapter 1? Insofar as the storyline.
Just setting up who Ahasuerus is, what, kind of leader, his sort of mentality about power and women.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that he pays attention to his advisors because they're
advising him, good.
advising him.
But also, in other words, insofar as the storyline, now there's an opening for a certain position, and there's a wanted ad for a queen. So why are you giving so much detail about it? Why is the entire Megillah focusing upon the parties at all. Why do you not the parties? In other words, it was a king, and the third year of the thing, he got rid of his wife, and then he started to look for a new wife, and ended up being Esther. We would have shrunk the first chapter down to like a sentence and a half.
Well, maybe as you said last week, maybe it's kind of showing God's hidden hand in the sense that it shows these sets of coincidences which brought a Jewish woman to be the queen.
Okay, that's true. That's from the global perspective of the entire Megillah, correct. But why do we need to know so much detail about Achashverosh? Why is Achashverosh the center of attention? Because the whole Megillah is the main character of the whole story is Achashverosh. It begins with the third year of Achashverosh reign, and then in chapter 10, and Achashverosh did decree taxes over the entire empire. I mean, it's all about Achashverosh.
Well, it's sort of setting up like who he is. So like when Haman, when Mordecai, and when Esther kind of come in the picture, we kind of know the person that they're trying to deceive.
Right. Correct. So what the key thing is that is there any focus particularly on the Jews here? Which is interesting. This is a book in the Bible, and there's no mention of the Jews per se at all. They're completely one with the total culture. So that really shows the main point is that really chapter 1 is not the first of the 10 chapters. It really launches the cause of the entire proceedings. How so? Because basically, what is Achashverosh what's his overarching philosophy of life? Yeah, but for what end? What does he like about? Why does he want to be in control? Why does he want this job? Let him be something else. What does his job offer him?
Power.
He likes power. But what does he like to do with that power? Comes the next chapter is he's going to have a beauty pageant. He's going to sleep with all the unmarried women in the entire kingdom, the good looking ones.
What's wrong with
What's the mentality of Achashverosh? He's a quintessential what?
hedonist, maybe?
Correct, hedonist, materialist. And what is a feature, what is a necessary consequence of the hedonism, of the materialism? And this is the main point of the whole, which shows a governing theme in the entire Megillah. What is the necessary result of materialism in its extreme form?
Maybe boredom.
Is the issue that focuses on Asher bored?
Well, he can be taken advantage of because we know it's obviously what his weakness is, what he desires.
Correct. So he's obviously prone to many weaknesses. But what is it? How does he act based upon his materialism, his hedonism?
How does he act?
Yeah. What's his manner of operation? What's his focus? Well,
Maybe a sense of entitlement.
Big entitlement, of course, entitlement, and therefore, what is the result on everybody else?
Oh, he takes advantage of people, or he doesn't care about people?
Yeah, it shows the absolute inhumanity of materialism. His wife gets in his way, who he loves or thought he loves. What happens to her? She's killed or thrown out, whatever the equivalent is. You know what I mean? He needs a woman. What happens to all the women in the next chapter? What happens to the women of the entire 127 provinces? They're brought for 6 months to prepare. Then they spend a night with him, and then they automatically become one of the concubines. Can that woman be married to anybody else and have a normal family life? No. He basically takes absolute brutality, abducts all the women of the empire for himself, and he's only going to be one of them is going to be the regular wife, the queen, and so therefore he's sleeping with thousands of women, and what's going to be the quality of the women who are stuck in these concubine houses? They're going to be free with nice clothing and food and all that. I mean, they're living as a royal, but they're basically ignored. They can live a life of absolute loneliness and of quiet desperation away from their families and the life of their whole thing. So does he have any moral qualm about that? Nope. No. And when Haman says that there's a nation who is not following your law, and I'll give you 10,000 pieces of 10,000 talents of silver to exterminate them, what does he say? Okay. All right. So wiping out a whole genocide, wiping a whole genocide over drinks, not a problem. Yeah, you can keep the cash. Here you go. Here's a ring. Done. And what's his rule about coming to him if you're not announced? You go into the inner sanctum sanctorum of his inner sanctuary. If he doesn't raise the staff, you can be killed. So he is unbelievably brutal. And he really shows really what the whole story. Let's get the essence of the story of the Megillah. Here's the main point. The Megillah, the Jews saw part of are living in exile. They're living in Babylonia. It's roughly 70 plus years, 80 years since the destruction of the temple. The previous kings allowed them to rebuild it, and then they stopped it. And the Jews are living in Galut, in Babylonia. And they're completely enmeshed in the society here. And what is society all about? Well, in other words, they're at his parties. If you're at his party, essentially, what is the central? If you're at a person's party, what is it fundamentally? You've taken your coat off. What are you basically feeling?
That you're part of it.
You're part of it, and you're part of what? You're part of the leader, the head of the party organizer. In this case, Achashverosh. So the Jews had got to a point where their de facto king was Achashverosh, and not Hashem. Hashem's name is not mentioned in the entire. And their belief is that this tyrant, this inhuman, hedonist or materialist, is really going to be their salvation. And the bottom line is, and then the story shows about what is the nature of such a tyrant, that he can even kill his own wife. He's willing to kill an entire society, and that it's such an unstable environment that anybody can get killed. Even Haman himself, his prize guy, and becomes Haman as well. So in that, he has it's completely nearly psychopathic. So what happened at the end of the Megillah? So therefore, it sets up the whole situation. The results in the killing of his wife, or getting rid of his wife, the raping of all the women of Parasuma die. Esther is taken in there. She's sitting there for years. Mordecai is coaching. Mordecai refuses to bow down. Why does he bow down? Because he saw that Haman was presenting himself as the deity himself. Therefore, that was an idolatrous. And also and he had to stand up to this whole revolution of philosophy and values. And then you have the whole episode. And then you have Esther with her intelligence, and of course asking everybody to fast and involved and getting inspired from the divine providence to be able to work out the right strategy to be able to have victory to come. So the Jews at the end saw the inhumanity of Haman, the megalomaniacness of the humanity of the hedonism of Achashverosh, the megalomaniacness of Haman, who actually, because he destroyed himself on one hand. They see the principledness and the clarity of thought and strategy and wisdom and courage of Esther and Mordecai. And at the end, they chose to follow that lifestyle. That's why there was a revolution of, the rabbis say that they accepted Torah in a new way when they saw that episode of Esther. But the first chapter of Esther sets the line, because that's the entire culture of the environment, which they bought into. And it shows you that be a materialist is basically to maintain that, and that personal pleasure is the highest good. By definition, there's no valuing of mankind. It's a denial of basic humanism and value anything higher. The denial of God.
And were Jews at that time allowed to return to Israel?
It's interesting. Well, there were Jews going from Babylonia, but earlier, I don't know, 20, 30 years earlier, Cyrus the Great allowed all religions to have religious freedom, and one of them was to have the Jews to rebuild the temple. That's the beginning of the book of Ezra. And the Jews go back with a guy named Zerubbabel, and he goes back there, and they build the Mizbeach, and they start to build it, and then they have problems, and then they over some years they build the Mikdash, but only 42,500 Jews go. So it's a rather paltry amount of Jews, because the Jews are living in South Florida over there in Bavel.
I guess what I'm getting at is it seems like the Jews could have left Persia and gone to Israel, but they decided to.
Everything's under the control. Israel is a part of a state, part of the 127 provinces.
I see.
You can run, but you can't hide.
I see.
So the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, which is dealing with the time a little before, a little after, deal with the Jews who are struggling living in the land of Israel. They have their unique problems. And the book of Daniel and Esther deal with the problems of Jews living in Babel. And they're different problems.
Okay.
The Jews living in the because they never listened to the rebuke of Isaiah and of Jeremiah, which we've done over the bunch of weeks, and they're living in exile, and they're buying into the culture of their time, which is Achashverosh, which is brutal, which is cruel. And interesting. So I heard this Rabbi Chaim Angel, who used to live, who worked in the Spanish Portuguese synagogue for many years. I heard one of his classes. He pointed out that there's a interesting. I think he got it from another scholar. Was that there's an interesting connection? Is that Shushan on the palace is sort of like the Migdash replacement. So all the Jews are streaming to the Migdash of Achashverosh, and they're enjoying that. And he has his own Kodesh Kodashim, his own sanctum sanctorium, which if you come in there improperly, you die, which is like the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Also, if you go there improperly, there's an idea of death associated with that. And the Jews basically, that Achashverosh had become the new god of the Jews. Shushan in his palace is the new temple. And the Jews are now completely, completely buying into their new leader, Achashverosh. But then they see in grotesque, vivid things about what does that mean to have such a leader, and what does it mean to be a hedonist, and to see the unbelievable inhumanity of it all. He even kills his own wife, his own top advisor, and willing to, and of course, to exterminate all the Jews in one day. That seems very reasonable. So it really shows us a profound Galut story of the Galut, of what the challenge of the Jew of buying into the philosophy of the materialist and the hedonist, and seeing what will be the natural consequences of that. And therefore, we celebrate the fact that God, through the agency of Esther and Mordechai, were preserved. And we mentioned last week, I think that was a very important point, is that one of the tragedies of the Holocaust is that we didn't have an Esther and a Mordechai. We had a crazy tyrant.
But would you say that before the Holocaust, the European society for the Jews was as spiritually debilitating as it was here for the Jews?
I'm not the first one to point out that one of the interesting things that I think Ray Soloveitchik points out is that he might argue, and he makes the similar point, is that the environment of Germany in the 20s was what they call the Roaring 20s in America, in Europe and in France, was a very promiscuous, hedonistic environment there. I mean, like like Great Gatsby, but there was a similar thing going on in Germany. So that immorality, that sort of hedonism was the highest principle, allows a Hamaness personality to be able to take form because there's no other principle other than the pain pleasure principle, and a person has no value. So really, that environment leads to a very dangerous situation, not just for Jews, but for all people, for humanity itself.
So that means we're ripe for that kind of thing in America too.
I mean, that's a hard judgment call. I mean, in certain sense, I would say yes. It's hard to know these things to an absolute precision. I don't know. That's a hard call. It's out of my. You allowed it. It's out of my pay grade.
Okay.
To put it very simple. I'm not. I don't got that level of insight and clairvoyance there. I'm making a general point, and that's the holiday of Purim. We're celebrating the Mordechai and Esther and the Jewish people who fasted and were done tshuva to access. Here's the key: to access the divine providence. You know what I'm saying? By their wisdom. In other words, and they're not going to be and seeing that what the reality, the external political reality is just a facade. In other words, I'll give you the best experience. Imagine you walking into the gilded party room of Achashverosh. How would you feel?
Can you say that again?
If you walked into gilded, gorgeous party room of Achashverosh, and there's beautiful linens, and there's gold couches, and there's people offering you wine out of gold cups, and there's buffet tables as far as the eye can see. What would you feel? You'd be in awe.
You feel very special, like, oh wow.
You feel very special, but would you feel threatened? But in reality, but we're disguising is that really this was all coldly calculated to create this sense of calm, but really part of Achashverosh's way of controlling the people. Would you feel controlled? No. So he's very shrewd.
You might also feel a type of disgust because it's your money that's allowing him to do all that, kind of like what happened to the Ukrainians with this president who was deposed.
Possibly, but it doesn't seem they felt that way because, like, how does a person feel when they're invited to the White House and they're having these elaborate, and I just saw PBS, I've never seen a PBS special on how they prepare for a state dinner. I mean, these are, the menu, I mean, is unbelievable. It's very thematic. It's like, Iron Chef quality food. It's not regular food. It's, designed for the occasion. You know what I mean? You have like 31 forks inside of your plate there. You don't know which one. It's the oyster fork, or the salad fork, and this fork, and that. You know what I mean? You got the 7, the water glass, the wine glass, champagne. You know what I mean? It's like the whole, the allure of the sophistication. In reality, it's part of it. It's part of control. One state to show dominance and influence over another state. You know what I'm saying? People don't feel that because they're looking at the surface. Like, yeah, of course kings have parties, and I want to be part of the party. But if you look at it a much more sophisticated perspective, he's controlling you. And when he's in control of you, he's not going to do good things with you or your daughters. What did he do in the next park? He took all the women. I mean, he's like outstanding. In ancient world, that seemed reasonable. Obviously, he was running such a brutal state that if you mess with the guy, it's like Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein, when he was would drive through, downtown Baghdad with his special agent, and then he would just grab women, have people grab them into his limousine, and they would never be seen again. He'd sleep with them that night, and they would be killed. That's what he did. And also his 2 crazy sons. Well documented. Just go on the internet. The land of truth. You'll find it all there. Okay? All right. So that's the bottom line. So that shows you the complete distortion of what Achashverosh is trying to convey, and Mordechai is trying to snap the Jews out of this sense of calm and a sense of
Complacency.
You know what I mean? And that's it. I mean, and it's not necessarily personal. In other words, he killed his wife, he killed his best friend, right? And he raped all the women of the kind of thing. This is Achashverosh.
So is he sort of like a Moses of his time?
Who? Achashverosh?
No, Mordechai.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes. He was, in fact, the Talmud recorded to be one of the 48 prophets.
So
there's no prophecy of him recorded. But the book of Esther is viewed as being written in you know the Ruach HaKodesh, in the divine spirit.
Has there ever since him have there been any other people like Mordecai in the Jewish world?
I mean, yes, not that they wrote a Megillah about them. I mean, Ezra and Nehemiah, who are similar age, but then take the story later on, are similar minded. You know, there's been Jewish leaders that have risen, who have been that what it means to be. That is the job of a Jewish leader, to shake the Jewish people out of their malaise and try to call them to action to be able to not get sucked in like this.
So maybe someday America will have a leader like that. American Jews,
Hopefully,
hopefully.
maybe you, Gilad. All right, guys. We'll call it a night, and we'll continue next week. All the best.
Thank you very much.
You got it.